Welcome back to Rules of Engagement. We just went over a couple cool replays sent in from the community. Now we're going to answer some questions also sent in from the community. If you guys want your replays analyzed every Thursday, feel free to go to www.majorleaguegaming.com/replays, submit a replay there, and every Thursday I take a couple of those and I go over them for Thursday's show. Also, if you want your questions answered on air, at the end of every episode, I answer any questions tweeted to me at axslav. So here we have a question from Joe. Why don't toss warp and DTs to make Archons late game PvZ, where gas is premium? You can save 25 gas. I always see 3,000 minerals and no gas in the Protoss bank in those late game situations. So actually you would save 50 gas. If you make Archon out of 2 DTs, it's 250 minerals and 250 gas. Whereas Archon made out of High Templar is 100 minerals and 300 gas. So if you make one out of Dark Templar, you save 50 gas, but you cost yourself 150 minerals. And unless it's an extremely dire situation for gas, which if it is 3,000 minerals and no gas, you probably should be making Archons out of Dark Templar. But more often than not, it's something a little bit more reasonable than that extent of an imbalance. And 150 minerals is worth much more than 50 gas in almost any situation. Especially with Protoss, where you can warp in tons of Zealots to harass, you can mass cannon up bases so that they're only Broodlords can attack them, and even then they'll buy you some time to defend that base. So there's a lot of uses for minerals, when there's very little uses for just pure gas. You can make, Archons out of High Templar, but those still cost some minerals. So you'd always rather have minerals and no gas than no minerals and gas. If you are in a situation where it's 3,000 minerals and no gas, you should be using. Joe is right. You should be making Archons out of Dark Templar. But the situations come up it's so seldom. It's so rare for the situation where it's better to make the Archon out of DT come up. This situation here is one of them. That most pro gamers have it ingrained to always make them out of Templar, because 99 times out of 100, the Templar is a more efficient Archon. So it's just something that's like an instinctual reaction. And if you ask them, they'll say, yeah, I should have made out our Dark Templar there, but there was 100 different things going on in the game. I just thought I wanted Archons, and I just made Archons. And it's just an instinctual reaction to choose the one that's usually better, which is the High Templar. So there are some situations where it's not optimal, but and Joe's right in that, it's just a mistake. But it's not, usually doesn't matter too much in most of those games. So another question from Joe. How come TOS doesn't make 2 hockey groups of stalkers to shoot down Broods or Vikings versus Corruptors? Isn't there wasted fire with one attack group? So it depends on how many stalkers you have, but often there is. So if you're trying to shoot down Vikings, if you have, it depends on attack upgrades and armor upgrades, etc. But generally, if you have more than 10 stalkers, you're going to be wasting a couple attacks. But unless you have, let's say you have 15 stalkers, if you focus fire one Viking, then one Viking, then one Viking, every volley you kill a Viking. If you have 15 stalkers, you split them into 2 groups, and you shoot, what happens is every 2 volleys you'll kill 2 Vikings, which is the exact same thing, except it's not as front-loaded, so it's slightly worse. Now, if you have 20 stalkers or more, that's when you would want to split them into 2 groups, or at least just box different groups and have them focus fire to Vikings. And that is something that actually the top Protoss do. So if you see the top Protoss versus Terran, if they ever have a situation where you have 20 stalkers, which is pretty rare to have 20 stalkers and Colossi. Normally you have 20 stalkers doing a blink stalker all-in, maybe off 2 bases, but most of the time you're not going to get quite that many, so this very rarely comes up. But sometimes, especially watching Nidens play, Niden is a player who likes to make a lot of stalkers with his Colossi. And what he does is, he doesn't use 2 different hockeys. Because the reason why is because you don't know, as you move your army across the map, you don't know where each hockey stalker is going to be exactly in relation to where the enemy Vikings are. And if let's say you hit Control Group 1 and right-click a Viking, maybe not all those stalkers in Control Group 1 are in range of the Viking. So what he does instead is he just kind of gets his stalkers close and attacks moves them just to get him to do something. And then during the battle, once he does his other things that are more important, the macro, the force fields, the guardian shield, he'll select a few stalkers. So he'll click and drag like 10 stalkers on the left side of the battle, shift right click Vikings on the left side, then box 10 Stalkers on the right side of the battle, and shift right-click the Vikings that way. So instead of using control groups, he uses box techniques or clicks and drags a few, and that way it's a little more efficient because you make sure the Stalkers are attacking units that are in range of them. So there is some wasted fire sometimes, but usually you don't have quite as many Stalkers to make that a problem. So thank you, Joe, for these 2 questions. That's it for tonight, but tune in again tomorrow at 5 Eastern. We're going to have some King of the Hill action in Heart of the Swarm. Katz is the current defending champion. And then at 7, we're going to have another episode of Rules of Engagement. It's going to be a moment of self-reflection where I analyze my own replays. See you guys tomorrow.